Today I'm going to show you how I installed the switchback Morimoto halos along with RGB Demon Eyes. Very special thank you to NWA Custom Audio and Lighting in Bentonville, Arkansas. If it wasn't for them giving me shop time, allowing me to use their tools, their wire, so on and so forth, this DIY would have never happened. So I can't wait to work with you guys on the next one. Materials are going to vary a lot depending on what you're going to do, but I'll cover what I used. Various screwdrivers and hand tools to get the bumper off, to get the headlights out, to take apart the headlights, so on and so forth. Also, soldering iron, oven to bake the headlights apart. You're going to need your Morimoto switchback halos, which I got 90mm halos from retrofitsource.com because that is the only place I trust going. No eBay, no Amazon, no nothing, just from them. The LEDs and stuff like that, depending on whatever you're using. I used RGB with an RGB controller, bunch of wire, bunch of other stuff. I'm just going to put whatever over here or something. Difficulty, I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 because I don't think it justifies a 5 out of 5 because it's really not stupidly difficult. It's actually kind of easy, especially if you're the DIYer. So let's just move on. Cover time. I'm going to say 1 to 2 days because that's somewhere in 1 to 2 days is where you're going to end up doing it. Now with 2 of us working on it, we were able to get it from, it was about 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock. That was 2 of us just straight working on it as fast as possible. You do have dry times that you end up having to wait for if you're painting your housings. If you're not painting your housings, you can do it faster. But I also had my father helping me, which he's baked apart, I don't know how many countless hundreds and hundreds of headlights. And he said the FRS headlights were the easiest he ever did. So it went really fast. So let's get started. And if you have any questions, don't forget, post them below. Also, make sure you go over the wiring a couple times. I mean, if you have any issues, just hit me up. I mean, on any of the social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Just hit me up and I'll see what I can do for you. Go ahead and pop the side marker out and that'll give you access to the wire plug, and set that aside and try not to lose it. Yeah, that's a lot of arrows. Red arrows are pop tabs. Green arrow is the pop tab that's hidden underneath the side marker. The blue ones are bolts. Now, I don't know if these are the exact locations of them, but I'm showing half the bumper. Just pull the pop tabs, pull the bolts, check for everything, and move on from there. Here you can see where we're checking to make sure that the whole bumper is completely loose. Last thing you want to do is start tugging on it, because you'll see my father and I walk up to both sides of the bumper and start kind of tugging on it, pulling it forward, and you'll see just how easy. See, my end already popped off, his popped off. You'll need to unplug the turn signals, and everything should then slide up and out of the way.
Oh, there was a bunch over there. I took them all off already. Okay. I just missed this one.
Now to get the headlights out, there is a couple bolts on the bottom, 2 bolts on the top, and also it has a pop tab in the center. Go ahead and pull those and lightly remove the headlight back and unplug all this stuff. Before you do that, you'll have to remove, it's like a little plasticky surround thing. You can pull them both at the same time, but it's easier just to go ahead and after you're done doing the bolts and pop tabs, to remove the plastic and then remove the headlight. As you can see, boop, it's done. Back of the headlight has 6 total screws holding the lens to the back of the housing. Take all 6 of those off. Flip the headlight over and you'll see where the bright bulb went, and there are 3 screws holding a white plastic ring in. Undo those 3, pop that plastic ring. Final step to getting the headlight disassembled before you bake it. See the red arrows, that's a plastic piece. You'll rotate that and it'll pop out. The blue arrow indicates a rubber like grommet like thing. You'll need to go ahead and just kind of pry that out.
It comes out somehow. Yeah, that just pulls out.
Preheat your oven at around 220 and then place the headlight in it, shut the door, set the timer for roughly 12 minutes, and walk away.
That one went together real nicely.
Alright, once the headlight is out of the oven, you can see my father using a pry tool at the sharpest point of the headlight, and he's going to pry up that whole front area, because that's going to give him an area to get a good grab on and to peel the actual lens apart. Now you'll see him start to peel it apart, and it's pretty tough to do. As he peels it apart, you'll see him start looking for deformation in the plastic, just in case we got it too hot, but we obviously didn't. I'm sitting there with the screwdriver making sure all that goopy, gobby adhesive doesn't get on the chrome, because it is kind of a pain in the butt to get off, especially if I got it in like where the brights are. You just kind of work it back and forth, and there you have it, it's apart. Now you need to remove the chrome plastic from the outer lens. It's just a couple screws and you're done. These arrows point to getting the projector off. Now you'll undo these three, flip it over. There's a couple more screws on the back, and there you have it. The projector's apart. You can get to the inside of it. Now that everything's taken apart, take your Scotch-Brite or your Brillo pad or whatever and sand the crap out of the chrome, because you want to scuff it up. Then you'll need to take a small drill bit, drill a pilot hole, use a Dremel, widen that hole out, and this is at the bottom edge of the headlight. And we had to widen the hole so that the halo would sit flush up against the round ring that's there from the factory, and so the wire would have enough room to go through. Now you need to figure out what color you're going to paint the housings. I went with black because it looks better to me. You can go with white, whatever color you want. You can paint match it, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But grab yourself a spray can. I just used, it was a Rust-Oleum, I do believe, but it had the nice fan tip on it instead of the round tip. It makes it easier to spray. First coat needs to be a light coat. You need to give it something to bond to. Now, if you don't want to have to scuff down the headlights, you can actually get away with just using some kind of etching primer or bonding primer, and you can spray right over the chrome and then spray your paint and still don't have to worry about it flaking off. I went ahead and put 3 coats on it. The second coat, put it nice and wet and gave it a good amount of dry time. And then I made sure that there was no dust, no debris, no high spots, no nothing, no fish eyes, whatever. I took them inside the wood booth so that I could control the airflow and everything else, and gave it a really nice wet coat again and let it dry for a few hours. While it dries, you can move on to other things, and that's where we're going to go now. Here I am sticking the 3 sections of the LEDs inside the projector housing, and this will give the Demon Eye effect. If you want to see more detail on how I do all the wiring and stuff for the RGBs, just go check out my RGB LED interior lighting video, which I'll link now. One reason I allowed myself to use the factory or the built-in adhesive on the LEDs is because of this. It is like a safety locking wire or whatever they call it. It's a real small fine wire. We're wrapping it through the little clips in the projector over the LED or through the LEDs, just to make sure that even if the adhesive fails, this will hold it in place. To mount the halo, all you simply need to do is mix up some epoxy, place that epoxy around where you're going to mount the halo to and a little bit on the halo, and then carefully put it in place and hold it there for, well, like 5 minutes. It's boring. To prepare the headlight to be baked back together, what you need to do is go ahead and fish all the wires from the halo and the RGB Demon Eyes back through the back side of the housing. That requires you to make another small little hole, just big enough you can fit the pins through it and the wires through it. Then align the lens perfectly. You want it perfect so that when you pull it out of the oven, all you have to do is mush it together and run the screws in. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, now it's time to bake it back together. So you'll start your oven at 220 again for 12 to 14 minutes. When you take it out, you'll need someone to squeeze that lens nice and tight and start running those screws back in. By putting those 6 screws in, put them in loosely so that you can make sure the lens is perfectly lined up, and then tighten them all down really quickly. The faster you work, the less time the adhesive has to cool down and harden up. This will ensure that all that factory adhesive that you saved, that, you know, Toyota did really good adhesive. You don't have to scrape it all out and put new adhesive in it like you do some of the other headlights on the market. All you have to do is when you put the screws in, it's going to tighten everything back together, and it tightens it all back together, squishes the adhesive back where it needs to be. I have 0 leaking, 0 moisture,
zero problems. So remember that hole I was telling you to fish the wires through? Well, you're looking at it, and it's a water hazard. So you want to use some silicone. You don't need this big tube of silicone. You can just go down to Lowe's and get a thing of silicone 1. That works great. And you want to make sure you get it in between the wires, around the wires. You want to make sure it is waterproof. So now you want to go ahead and finish putting the headlight back together, all those rubber thingies and clips. Yeah, those thingies. Put those back in.
Now your headlights are done, everything's done, basically, but it's time to wire them. Wiring is always the fun part. You can get very complicated, seemingly, but it's actually really easy when you break it down to a few little easy steps. Here are your headlights. Now I have RGB Demon Eyes, so I have 4 wires per Demon Eye, plus the plugs for the halos. Turn signals, only wire you need to worry about coming out of the turn signal is the red one. That is the signal to pulse the blinking. You'll also need under dash. There is a wire, I will explain that when we get to it. Battery and your controller. Now, battery's obvious, controller's mounted wherever you ended up mounting it or end up mounting it. These are the controllers for the halos that come by Morimoto. Now, the simple thing is you had to fish the wire through and to get it out the back of the headlight. Proper way to do it so you don't have to cut a whole bunch of holes, or really big holes, is to D-pin that plug. You can look on YouTube and see how to D-pin a plug. You D-pin it and re-pin it when you get it on the other side. First thing, easy thing is, you simply connect each plug to its controller. Now to wire those controllers, that can get a little bit interesting. First, the brown represents white. Obviously, if I put white on here, you wouldn't be able to see it. You need to go ahead and ground these. Now, where I grounded them is I simply made my own ground right there on the body. Did this for each side, keeping the ground as short as possible, but still having enough room that the controller could be mounted and if later can be taken off. Now to address power to the box. That's the next thing. This is the fun thing. You go up underneath the dash and way up in here you'll see 3 white plugs. Middle plug, pin 3, they're calling it pin 3. I don't actually even know what pin it was on. Now it's a nice bundle of wires and you have to fish through the wires to find a light blue wire. There's only one. That white blue wire is an accessory signal. That accessory signal is when you turn the key over. That will then power this to turn around and, well, tell the main part of the halo to actually turn on. So you will need to take the wire from here. This is the driver's side. Since all the wires are going through the passenger side of the car, you'll have to carry this wire over here and then carry that up and around to the 3rd pin. Now just T-tap into it and it's done. Now the reason all the wires are coming over to the passenger side is because only one wire needed to be run all the way back across to the driver's side. It makes it easier because there's a grommet already on the passenger side of the car that all you got to do is poke a hole in it, use a little rubber seal grommet and poke all the wires through it, and you never have a problem after that. You don't have to worry about water getting in, you don't have to worry about anything, wires getting cut up, nothing, because the grommet's already there. Now, next step is you want to tie each side of the amber, the switchback function, to the turn signal. So when you hit the hazards, when you turn your turn signal on, when you unlock the car, when you lock the car, when you do anything that requires the turn signal to blink, it will blink. So you take both of these, and somehow I'll draw a line, T-tap into the red wire on the turn signal. Then you need to, I'll just bundle all these, carry over all 4 of these to the passenger side, then carry all of these back in and through the grommet on your firewall into the LED controller. Now you will have to also power the LED controller, which requires obviously a power and a ground. If you want to see exactly how I hooked up the controller, you can check out my interior LED video, and that's grounding it out. And now you have all of this hooked up. You have all of this hooked up, all of this hooked up, all of this hooked up, this hooked up, this hooked. Yeah, it's all hooked up. So you're done. And you can see just how bright these dang things are. I mean, they're like a mini driving light. I mean, it's pretty insane. Let me go hit the turn signal and show you that. Now you can see, let's get in there and see if I can get this good.
Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school. So you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby. Yeah.